All right, we'll just roll right into this. So on today's episode, we have Jan Receski. Did I get that right?
Perfect.
Awesome. So a little background about Jan. Jan owns and operates this amazing facility here called OnPar Now. It is a virtual golf simulating place. They have what is it called, TrackMan simulators,
yes.
and really cool. You can't see it in the video here, but really cool putting greens and chipping greens and stuff like that. So perfect for practicing golf. But as we get started, Jan, one of the things that we always ask of our guests is, kind of get started, as a fun way to get things rolling. Do you have any tattoos?
I actually do not. My generation, it just wasn't popular, and so I never did. Although I will share the movie Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
So Dory, there's a scene, and she said, just keep swimming. And so my sister and her two daughters and I we were considering, and we even drew it up to get this little fish tattoo with JKS, just keep swimming, tattooed, but never actually took that step.
That's actually awesome, because Sean and I always talk, about entrepreneurship and running a business, and the whole essence of this whole podcast and show is basically to kind of highlight how in society we believe that, okay, all these successful entrepreneurs, businessmen, businesswomen, you hear their success stories. They made millions, they had these beautiful cars, beautiful houses, but you don't hear about the struggles. But if you actually listen to their stories, it was failure after roadblock after failure after roadblock. And it's like that saying right there, just keep swimming, is like captures the essence of entrepreneurship and business ownership of just keep moving forward. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Susan, my sister, actually talked with her daughter. The way it came about was Allison was going to get on the bus and was sobbing. And Susan's like, Allison, just keep swimming. And that became kind of their little motto. And I loved it. Divorce situation. That Christmas, she and her family gave me this giant fish stand, ceramic. It's beautiful, and it means so much.
That's awesome. Yeah. Very, very cool. Finding Nemo is one of my favorite movies, actually.
Yes.
So that's a
Love
weird
it.
little connection there. But I never kind of linked that to entrepreneurship, but that is a fantastic little slogan.
Agreed. Especially just starting out in business, 2 weeks prior to closing on my loan, the world shut down with COVID. And I know everyone dealt with it and lived through it. Some sadly did not. But I just very, very difficult way to begin. And now here it is. End of February was 2 years. I made it through the worst part. I'm very anxious or excited for the future, because making it through that as a startup, very difficult. But I so appreciate everyone's interest in my place. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Let's back up 1 second. I want to go back to the whole Nemo thing.
Oh,
all right?
okay.
Because you raised something really important in my mind. I think that, love the movie, for one thing. But think of Dory. You need sort of a plan. Dory goes all over the place. And I see that with a lot of entrepreneurs who want to get into a certain business, say startup. And I think that Dory has great energy, but Dory needed a little bit of a roadmap to follow. And I feel like that's a real important piece of this. You got to have the energy like Dory has, but you also need to have some focus here and there. And even if you don't understand an industry completely, if you're passionate about it, you're going to learn. You're going to learn, and it's when you love something too, it's not forced. So when you get into these things, these struggles that you talk about, I mean, there's all kinds of personal things that happen with these businesses.
So true.
And we're going to get into more of that, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that I love the energy that Dory has. We have to have a plan too, though. I think it's super important for anybody out there that's kind of doing their thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great point.
Yeah. And then going back to what you said, so you opened up so that would have been March of 2020, so right before COVID happened, right?
So, yeah, 2 weeks before I closed on the loan, the world shut down, and then I got the keys to do this build out November of 2021.
Okay.
And so 2020, February of 2021, I actually opened. So Rycon did the build out, fantastic job, but everything was so delayed with even redoing the terminal. PJ Dick, the developers, they were widening the sidewalks, making major structural changes. They were sidelined. And then supply chain issues, getting glass and everything to do the build out. Everything was very delayed, but here we are.
Yeah.
That had to be a major freak out for you, especially when you make this emotional commitment, you make a huge financial commitment, and you didn't have a crystal ball. Exactly. You didn't know when this pandemic was going to be, the mandates would be lifted and things like that. How scary is that? Because all the suppliers that you're paying to do this beautiful reconstruction of this place, they don't say, you know what, just pay us when the pandemic ends. You got to pay as you go. And I think that's a quality that entrepreneurs have. Even if you didn't start out that way in your mindset, you still have that wiring, some of that wiring. That's what's beautiful about entrepreneurs. You take that risk, and you're a poster child for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so many people have said, wow, I am so strong. And I'm like, time out. No one knew, right? We were told 2 weeks, just sidelined for 2 weeks, and then 2 months, and really 2 years before things have truly gotten back. Obviously, COVID still exists, but people know how to manage it so much better than before. But it wasn't that I was all that tough. I truly didn't know, but I had already taken an early retirement. I was all in. The wheels were turning. There was no stopping. But it took a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of grit.
Sure.
To just keep going.
Did you ever think, man, I don't know if this is worth it, go in this direction now, based on what you didn't know then was going to happen?
I didn't.
You did not?
I've had many moments of, I cannot believe it's been this difficult.
I'm sure.
So I had a business associate who he was very helpful in the financial projections. And he was involved in several different startups and would always caution me, Jan, it just takes so much energy and time, and it got to the point where I was like, hey, Joe, come on, who do you know who has more stamina than me? He was exactly right. And so it's very difficult. And when you're a startup, and because of COVID, I had always planned on corporate memberships, and I couldn't get that attention. And so very lean. Thank goodness I have my sister working for me, but I don't have the funds to have extra help, even the help that I need. So I'm very much still in the weeds. And it's the stressful part is having all these initiatives, being proactive, and I don't have the time to do that because I'm so in the weeds with just the day-to-day operations, which I love, and I have no problem cleaning the sand trap and the restrooms and everything else. I'll do anything and everything. However, it's important to be able to grow the business, to have the time and, to focus on the other things as well. So that has probably been the biggest obstacle.
Those are such major points, because you got to wear every hat, particularly when you're starting out and you don't have all of the resources to bring all the people on that you need to. But man, from, like you said, cleaning the restrooms, taking out the garbage, in this case, raking an indoor sand trap, all of these crazy things that a lot of people don't even think about. And one of the hilarious things is when people who don't own businesses think, these business owners, they got it made. They could just go on vacation when they want.
I know.
All these things.
Right.
I got one question for you. I'm going to have a whole bunch, but I'm going to ask you, why here? why this location, Smallman Street, Strip District in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think it's a really cool area, and it's always busy, and I get all that. But how do you think, or why did you think this would be a good fit for geographically right here on planet Earth?
I'm thrilled, first of all, that I landed here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I wanted centrally located. If I had it in the North Hills or the South Hills, that probably would be my customer base, and that would be it. But here, I'm a mile from downtown. Again, this was all planned pre-COVID. Hopefully, and I know I've seen signs, downtown is coming back, so it's easy access. I just always envisioned people coming at lunch. I offer 2-hour validation parking, so you zip in, get a little session, practice session, after work, whatever. But I always thought that I would be, as I started to plan this, there was a building being completed, 3,000 Smallman, and it had what I wanted. Every place I had ever been to with a simulator was dark and cluttered and full of testosterone. I wanted the exact opposite. I wanted bright and open and welcoming. My concept is basically a place where especially females don't feel intimidated. Men love the technology. Everyone's welcome. But this building, 3,000 Smallman, they were finishing it. It had big, beautiful windows, and I thought, this is perfect. So CBRE showed me the space and then said, let's go take a look at the terminal. Well, from the outside, at that point, there were big mounds of dirt, chain link fence. They were just redoing it. It was a rainy day, and from the outside, it's low and dark, and I thought, oh my goodness, why are you even bringing me to this? And I walked in, and you can see it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And being in the Strip, the energy and what this place has totally transformed. I live in the cork factory with my one son. I have twin boys, and in 9 years, it's totally, like I said, transformed.
I was checking out your website, and I flipped through there, and the videos on there, the instructional videos, just to help people learn a little bit more about this amazing facility. That's one thing, but I think little things that you're doing, like, I know it sounds rudimentary or whatever, but this parking validation, for people that maybe aren't downtown all the time, maybe that is detrimental a little bit. Maybe it's, would scare them away from coming down here.
Absolutely.
No, you're covering that.
Yeah.
It's those little tiny nuggets of special things that you do as a business owner to make it more appealing for these audiences that you're serving. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting as this develops, some of the other things that you come up with. I really can't wait to see how this unfolds even more so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much money the person has. They're so grateful just to have the convenience and not to have to worry. Everyone has a rash about parking, especially in the Strip. They think there isn't any or it's expensive, and I wanted to take that off the table. It's like our clubs. We have equipment here, no charge. You're not going to go buy golf clubs to see if you like the game. And so I wanted to take those two barriers to entry out of the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I love that too, because I was just listening to this other podcast interview, and the guy who was on the show.
Wait, you listen to someone else's podcast?
I do all the time. Unfortunately, this one's my favorite though. But the guy that they were interviewing, I can't remember the man's name, but he had ran this very large restaurant in New York City for like 15, 20 years or so, and it was like 5-star, top of the line restaurant. And when they would ask him, how did you get, was it your food that was better than the rest? Was it, the location? And he said that he just focused so heavily on customer service.
Absolutely.
Like he was, the manager there, the owner, and he was in the restaurant. He had heard someone say, I would really like a croissant or something like that. And they didn't make croissants. He's like, I ran down the block, got a croissant, and came back and said, hey, this one's on the house. And he's like, that guy remembered that for
Absolutely.
Ever,
Right.
and it's like those, like Sean had said, those little details people remember. And I do like this location's perfect. I'm biased. I live down here too. I live like a couple blocks away, but
and have been here often. Thank you so much.
yes, yeah, I will say to all the listeners, I love this place. It's very fun, and it's laid back. And Jan actually is very welcoming, so that's a huge part too.
You even had a family get together here,
we had
correct?
my family loved it too.
That's awesome.
And they were awesome too with
A
getting
surprise
everything-
going away
Yeah, it
party.
was a surprise going away party.
Yes, 50 people hidden in Bay 1, and Antonino walks in from the back, and I was in tears, and I didn't even know anyone. It was so moving. Yeah, that was a great night. But I've had over 100 corporate events, just so many companies coming in, doing the team building, networking. I've had, and this is very cool. After this, I have someone coming to check out the space for her husband's 70th birthday party. And yesterday, I had someone come in for her daughter's 16th birthday party. Wow. So not only the corporate activity, but it's such a wide range. It's appealing to everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's like, the atmosphere is great. Like I said, they have events. My family loved it. So thank you again for that. Another thing I think would be interesting for people to hear too is, kind of about this TrackMan simulator and all the different courses you can play and the things you can do on it, because it really is for everyone. Like if you're not a golfer, there's those mini games, there's the driving range, like there's ways you can actually learn. If you're an avid golfer too, you can play all kind of different courses. So if you just want to kind of speak a little bit about the TrackMan software and maybe why you picked that one, like are there other ones that you could have focused on, or just like the kind of the tell-all, be-all of the software?
Yeah, so the putting green, $86,000 putting green.
Wow.
It's PuttView. So Full Swing is a company that makes simulators, and I actually just tripped over my putting green solution. Full Swing partnered with PuttView, the technology underneath, to create. Yeah, it's got 55 jacks. You can change the lie, which is just such great practice. So it's a nice large 14 by 24 area. It's got 3 cups. People are very excited about that, to be able to practice your short game. So as I was doing that research, then I landed on TrackMan, the best in the industry. So yeah, over 200 courses. I've got a few fairly local, Nemacolin, Mystic Rock, and Shepherd's Rock. That's behind us. Moorfield in Ohio, a lot of tour venues, 4 of the 7 St. Andrews, Japan, Hawaii. You can play anywhere around the world. And I've had people tell me, I was at Moorfield. That tree, that's exact. It's what the PGA and LPGA uses. So if you're watching golf on TV, the orange arrows, same technology.
Oh, really?
Or you can go to the driving range. It gives you the best data. It's got so many data points, not just distance, but loft, just smash factor. And it's thoughtful practice. You can adjust then and learn and get better in your game. You go to a driving range and you pound a bucket of balls and you get 0 feedback. Right. This is thoughtful, very beneficial practice.
And honestly, like I said, I'm not a great golfer, but I golf fairly often.
Your own.
Yeah,
That's good.
but that's the driving range feature. Like when I'm in a league here. It was in the winter and the fall, but you would warm up beforehand and just taking a couple of swings and being able to see where you actually make contact on the club helps you, because now I know what I'm actually doing. Whereas, compared to where I'm at a driving range, like you said, just hitting a bucket of balls, I don't know. I'm just, I'm like, oh, that looks good. But, you don't really know what you
Right.
did. You could actually be swinging the wrong way. So the technology is really cool and it does actually help. And so it's also another, not to sound like a salesman here, a sales pitch, but like for people who are actually in the golfing and or students or, people who are in golf leagues that want to get better, like this is, I think, the actual best way to learn. You have
Agreed.
pros here too, right? So you can come and get some lessons from them.
Yeah, so Kevin Shields, the pro at Nevillewood, won the Pennsylvania Men's Open. He and his wife were just walking by this summer and, of course, caught his eye. And he came in and he's now, because of the weather, he's gone back to Nevillewood to give lessons outdoors. But he was here 3 days a week during the off season, and he did a testimonial before he left. And he said, he's in his early 50s. He said, I have never in my life asked for a job before. And he said, I asked Jan that day, can I work here? Huge testimonial. I mean,
that's awesome.
He's so well regarded. He's got like 769 clients in his book. I've got Karen Bennett. She's LPGA certified, in charge of the LPGA in the whole Northeast. She's just passionate about teaching, as is Kevin, but she just, she does our beginners clinic, and she's still here one day a week, thank goodness, giving lessons. Grant Baracchini, he will be here through June. He is director of instruction at Butler Country Club. And again, they are all so passionate about teaching and wanting to help others get in the game. And yeah, it's a very beneficial lesson having an iPad hooked up. A third of the screen is your body. You see your mechanics, and it's just great instruction. Yes.
Definitely.
So, Antonino, I told Jan when I got here a little story about, I had an Uncle Frank who was the epitome of the hot-headed Italian golf person. He would wrap clubs around trees, notorious for that. And I would end up with a mixed bag of clubs. And even though I didn't really golf, he taught me how to swing. But the problem is, I'm left-handed. He was right-handed. So I learned how to swing right-handed. I'm not great. I would love to golf more. Mm-hmm. There's just so many other things happening. But so I'm getting to the point here. So as a new person coming in here that's not really a seasoned golf person, what could they expect? Because I know a lot of times people feel intimidated and maybe like, oh my gosh, I'm not the best golfer. You know, this is sophisticated, but I think there's this element of, number one, the way you, your personality and the way you conduct business here and make people feel welcome. Mm-hmm. But the other piece is, as a new person, what's that process? Who's really a novice?
Yeah, so we always get everyone set up on a TrackMan, and Antonino mentioned the little chipping games, these little target games. T-Rex is in the background making snarky comments. It's not only fun, it's great practice. So a little 40 to 60 yard shot, and a novice walks in, I will always get them started with stance and grip, so that, and we were talking earlier, all sports that I can think of, basketball, soccer, regardless of what it was, you've got a ball coming at you and you react. Golf, it's so easy, right? The ball's just laying there. And I think that's why it's so frustrating. It should be easy, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
so we get everybody started, and they can, and to your point about, it can be friends night, date night, whatever, people coming in just to have fun. But if you want to get started, we've got this beginners clinic, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. Great way to start. We go over lingo and etiquette, and then it's swinging, putting, chipping, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. Like I said, May is already filled. Hopefully I've had over 300 females and about 24 men come through those clinics, 12 at a time. And they recognize it. It's true career development, and they want, or maybe it's just like, I say, every right reason to play. It's not just for business relationships, it's personal relationships, it's ageless, healthy, fun to get out there, and huge uptick in the attention to golf with COVID. So that was a great offshoot. Yeah. There is a positive to that.
That is true. Mm-hmm. On that note, if you don't mind me asking, so, my friends and I, we started really getting more into golf right when COVID happened, because it was literally the one thing that you could do. Like, you could go out to the course, so we couldn't go to bars, restaurants, whatever it may be. Like, that was our social gathering. We go Saturday mornings, we go golf. And there was weird rules, like, there was no, you couldn't take the flag out, and they had these like weird styrofoam things in there. But I'm curious how that kind of affected you, because while golf was getting popular, like, you weren't really allowed to let people in the door, right? So you were kind of basically closed, right?
So limited, fastidious about cleaning. I remember for the grand opening, we had rolling groups of like 30 were allowed at a time, because we were scheduled to open. Probably the biggest issue was not being able to get corporate activity, big groups, things like that. So yeah, it definitely affected it. But overall, like you said, the attention to golf was a big uptick.
Definitely.
So like a new person coming in, we covered that. You're going to make them feel comfortable. You're going to talk about stance and technique and get them familiar with some of the equipment. Let's flip to the other side now. You've got these people who, men and women who golf on a regular basis. They're really good. They're great, love the sport. They know exactly pretty much what to do. I know you made massive investment in the putting green and the sand trap and everything like that. The people who are seasoned golfers, what can they expect when they walk in here?
Yeah, so several have gotten a membership, and so they've said, even when I'm out on the course, I want to come in here at least once a week and get my game dialed in. If you get a new set of clubs, this is a great way to figure out the distances. And it's so important to know that you've got the right tool in your hand. So if it's a 120-yard shot, you're like, okay, I know that's my 8-iron. Whether you can execute or not, that might be a different thing. But knowing that you have the right tool, like I said, that's a lot of people come in to do that. But then that thoughtful practice, and especially the short game, not only the environment, the atmosphere, the welcoming, non-intimidating environment, it's the short game area that differentiates us. Very difficult to find a place where you can practice that, and that's where you shave strokes, is your putting or your little chip shots.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, I just, I agree. And like when you talk about like the, I think you use the term non-intimidating environment, especially like, I know you were mentioning more the professional kind of seasoned golfers, but, as someone who's learning something new, it's intimidating to go out onto a course, or like to a driving range where you have, a couple, 20, 30, 40 people sitting right next to you and they can see where the ball's going. There's a little bit of privacy like in these things.
Yeah, good point. Even if you're an avid golfer, typically you get up to that first tee and it's like, please just let me get off this tee, let me have a great shot, because you think the entire world is watching.
Right.
Often they're not, but it is. That's the word, is intimidating.
Yep.
Yes.
How did you know which equipment would make the most sense for the business that you wanted to start? I mean, unless you did tons and tons of research, because this isn't like you're going across the street to buy groceries.
Yeah.
This is a significant investment. How did you know where to start? How to start looking at this equipment?
Everything that I did, I researched. I had never done a build out, a loan, a lease. All of it was new. And so that's what I did, was just every night, every weekend, researched and talked with, once I came upon Full Swing, TrackMan, Putt View, talk with the reps, just read. Thank goodness for the internet. So helpful. Yeah, and just...
What about your, you tell me a little bit about your background before you got into this. How did those skills and maybe connections and things like that you developed in a corporate type setting help you make good decisions for this business?
Great question. A lot of people get to this age, they would have retired when I took this step.
At 29.
At 29, yes. A lot of us. Yeah, so I just had, and I firmly believe, everything that I did led me to this. A lot of the experiences I had at the Hillman Company, so 30 years in data and systems, but a lot of the experiences I had, I was 56 and the company tapped me to take on the legal administration team. Huge compliment that they were still investing in me. So they wanted me to go to Duquesne University, take corporate law 1 and 2. So the admins were reporting to me, and that whole experience of, I learned enough that whenever I really decided to do this, I had learned enough that I knew which questions to ask. I knew I wanted an LLC, single member, and all of that. So, and just all the experiences I had working with different people, and the Hillman Company is fantastic. I'm so grateful to them for that education. Yeah.
What I love about this, Jan, you mentioned earlier about supporting local businesses, right? And I love the fact that you weren't on the LPGA and, and said, hey, this is something I'm passionate about. You were a corporate type person, right? And working in a completely different kind of environment. And all of a sudden you said, hey, I'm passionate about this. I want to go this direction. But it wasn't like you were, golfing 36 holes a day, that kind of stuff.
Right. I'm a wannabe.
I'm sorry?
I'm a wannabe.
Oh
Everyone
gosh,
thinks because I did
that's
this,
awesome.
I'm an amazing golfer. I just saw this huge need.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got a bit of the pieces that are required. I have a bit of the business background. I have the stamina. I saw this huge need in the community for this. I love golf. I never had the opportunity to play all that much, but I can hold my own out there. And I thought, yeah, this absolutely has to happen. I started canvassing, especially females. Same exact story. I went for a lesson. I felt intimidated because it was typically with a guy. I went with my boyfriend. It was a total disaster. And because you need to take that emotionality out of it, just like with your uncle. And I thought, I can do this. It needs done. And when I started sharing the idea, which I kept it very guarded, I thought, I don't want someone else to do this, but I talked with a few friends or business associates, and they were in tears saying, this absolutely has to happen. And I thought, I'm doing it. Yep.
What compelled you to just go all in? Because that's a big deal. You could have stayed in the corporate world forever and done the rest of your thing if you wanted to.
Very, very comfortable. Very demanding job. However, I was comfortable. I had been at Hillman for almost 31 years. And it was a huge step, but I was not this entrepreneurial spirit all my life and thought, I need to find my niche, But when I had the idea, I knew I really wanted to act. Yeah. So I just went for it, and I really didn't ever question it. I didn't look back. In fact, I don't know if I should say this, but
go for it.
Oh, now you really need to say
it. I got to the end of the project, and I needed $230,000 more on top of my loan, and had always thought I would get private equity money. Had a few names that I was going to approach, and I cashed in my 401k. I'm all in.
That's awesome. And
it's awesome that you went that route, but I bet your financial advisor was like, are you sure you really want to do this? And you said, obviously, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and
it's very motivating.
Absolutely. and Sean and I talk about this all the time, and, I own and run 2 businesses, and, you talked about earlier how in the startup phase, you wear a ton of different hats, and it can be exhausting. You have to have a lot of stamina. And, I can also see when you were kind of telling your story there, the passion in your eyes, it means a lot to you. And I think that's where a lot of, I like capturing these stories because people don't realize, one, the risk that business owners or entrepreneurs take, but 2, the heart and passion that they put into their businesses. Like, I can tell this means everything to you. I mean, you know, obviously you love your family and your friends, but you love this business. I'm the same way. And, you know, we always talk about how it's so important that you bet on yourself. And that's what it sounds like you did. And, you know, one of the things that I always struggled with as an entrepreneur, as a business owner was, you know, I remember a couple years ago, we were starting to grow, and, you know, we're getting super busy, and I'm texting my team, my workers at, like, you know, at night. And I'll never forget, the one guy was like, "Hey man, it's 10:30 at night." And I'm like, "Yeah?" He's like, "It's 10:30 at night. Like I'm trying to get to bed." I'm so sorry. But like in my head, it's like what other people don't understand is, as that entrepreneur, as that business owner, you're all in. This is I wake up Saturday morning. Most people, I think, are like, "Oh, let me go make my coffee. Let me go have let me watch like the news." And I'm like, what do I got to do today? Like, you know,
Right.
What needs done, you know? And it's like, it's really hard to just turn off that switch, because, you know, you are attached to your business. You know, you essentially are your business, you know. And we had talked about this on previous episodes too, about the human connection. You do a really good job about that, about kind of welcoming people in and connecting with your customers and stuff like that. But we live in a society, I believe, where everyone's talking about, you know, it's all about sales and marketing. And that's true. But, you know, one of the things we like on this podcast is learning about that human connection, because what people don't realize is, you know, it took me a long time to realize this too, is customers they're buying a product. Yes, they're buying a service, but they're really buying you. You know, there's all kind of competitors out there. There's others, you know, software companies that are out there that do the same thing I do. You know, I believe that those people choose to interact with my business because they like interacting with me. You know, they bought into
Absolutely.
to me, you know. I just really like to stress that, you know, and I appreciate you sharing that story, because like I really just like to express it to our listeners and anyone who's interested in entrepreneurship or starting a business, you know, the importance on believing in yourself and betting on yourself, because that's exactly what you did, you know. You took a risk, you took a gamble, for lack of a better term, and, you know, you are motivated, and I'm confident it's going to work out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And as far as inspire, really that's the base, is I just always loved inspiring others and help, you know, whether it was at the Rivers Club, the gym, Meraki Studio, wherever I was working out, or, you know, just talking with other women especially and helping them be their best self. And that's such a motivating factor, and it's genuine. That's why I love my sister Susan working here. She approaches the customer the same way that I do. They matter, and anything that we can do to help them get in the game, and it's so much more than golf, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, my friends and I always joke, and we say that, you know, my friends, you know, sometimes their girlfriends will, you know, not get upset, but they'll be like, "Oh, you guys are out golfing Saturday morning again. Like, you know, you guys are going to be on the golf course for the night." You know, like kind of like, you know, say these things, but it's like, yeah, it's a game, you know, it's like, you know, it's fun, but, you know, it's a relationship building thing too. You know,
Absolutely.
we communicate, we talk, we catch up, you know, ask each other for advice, you know, it's,
That's why it's so good for business as well, because where else can you spend at least typically 4 hours, and you can really tell, you learn a lot about someone's character when they're on the golf course. It's like your uncle. Are they wrapping the club around the tree? Are they cursing and swearing? Or are they managing themselves? You have a bad shot. Yeah, it's emotional, right? It's frustrating. And can you deal with that? Is this a person that I want to do business with? Is this a person that I want to have a personal relationship with? You know, it's difficult to hide that, your true self, out there on the course. So it's great benefit.
absolutely.
That's a great point.
Yeah. There's, you know, even to that point too, I know Sean's going to make fun of me, but I listened to another podcast, and it was this guy was an investor, and, well, he owned a couple businesses, but he was, you know, invested in different businesses, and he was really interested in this one company, and he went out to the golf course with him and brought his brought their wives or whatever, and they were golfing, and they went home, and he said to his wife, like, I really like this guy, like I'm gonna invest money, and his wife said, no, do not invest, because he was like, I don't know if you noticed, but he was cutting strokes, and he said like a couple years later the guy was committing fraud. And it's, I mean, like, like that's, I'm not saying everyone who does that ends up that way, but it's, it's a really good way to, like you said, kind of judge people's character.
I would have drawn the same conclusion.
Yeah.
And great point about cutting strokes. And it's your word. It's your integrity. It matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Let's back up for a second again. You mentioned about your sister being involved with the business. And I know that in a startup case, or if you're going to expand somehow, it's who you partner up with that makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
And it can be completely random, not random, but a business person outside of your family circle. But when it gets personal when family is involved, because oftentimes that whole dynamic is different, because you might treat a relative differently than you would an employee, whether it's you're harder on somebody or you're softer. I mean, it just depends on the situation. This whole situation with, you said your sister's involved with you. Explain how that's working, because I think a lot of people that are getting into this, they're looking to people that they can trust, people that they can work with and confide in and trust with money and things like that, and have them be dependable, that they're going to be here on time and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm glad you're asking me and not Susan.
Well, seriously, we're going to interview her next. Is she on her way? We want both sides of the story.
When I got serious about this, I took Susan to dinner, and she says, what are you, nuts? She said, I'm left-handed. I'm not athletic. I don't play golf, nor do I want to. And I know nothing about business. And I said, and you'd be perfect because you're my sister and you'll have my back. And she is perfect. And she manages payroll and inventory and is fantastic with the customers. And you can't find anyone more dependable than Susan. She taught in the autistic classroom at Gateway for 13 years. And I didn't know if she would be able to make that break, but thank goodness she did. And yes, it is difficult. It's over 2 years now, and certainly we've had a few discussions where, she's 5 years younger, but she's been a godsend.
Yeah. I can tell just the way you responded, watching your emotions. You love this person. She loves you, and it's a great thing. Yes. It's a blessing, to have somebody that you can really trust. So what do you think? What's the future here? You talked about, hey, maybe we could expand this somehow. And you don't have to reveal all the secrets, but I love this.
Huge compliment that if two people walk in separately, at least one asks if it's a franchise. It is different. I had Trackmen here. They did an annual meeting. They are worldwide. They had people from Denmark, China, Chicago. 80 reps were here. They were supposed to be here for like a half an hour just checking out the space. They had meetings, Nemacolin, various places that have Trackmen. They were here for an hour and 45 minutes.
Wow.
They were blown away. They have seen every facility amongst themselves, right, that exists basically. I was standing on the steps talking for an hour and a half. They just kept firing questions. They just wanted to know the backstory and just all of it because it's so different. Again, huge compliment. So I think that I would have a second location before I franchise. I have a list of names who have shown serious interest. If and when you franchise, and it's all across the United States. So I believe that I would have this second location, be able to create a template, because when I did this, it was a good year and a half of cobbling together all the pieces, the research. I have everything, I did everything, but maybe if I could smooth that with a second location, that would make good sense. And then, yeah.
How long ago did you start thinking about having your own business? Because again, you might have been settled in and kind of comfortable in the environment you described, but there had to have been something like ticking back here that said, "There's more, and I want to try this." How long ago did you start thinking about stepping away from that other world and stepping into a new one?
Yeah, so I could see the Hillman Company at one point. We had, I believe it was 140 employees, and 70% private equity investing, and we would have boots on the ground, and then they pulled back from that, and it was more fund manager giving the money to a fund and letting them do that, do the work, boots on the ground type. And so we were just investing more, and I could see, we were at 50 employees, and I could see that things were changing a bit. Leadership, a lot of the leadership was my age, and things were moving to our Wilmington, Delaware office, and I thought I was seeing the writing on the wall that I could see there would be more changes, and it was going to affect me. I will live to be 100. I will work to be 100. I just have always envisioned being and I thought at that age, difficult to get another job in corporate America, and that I really started thinking. So it was probably a few years before I made the break where I was thinking of doing something, and I thought it would be in the fitness area, maybe female focused, because I was getting a lot of questions. I'm still fit, and nutrition is important, and healthy lifestyle and all of that, and I would have people reach out to me and ask. And I didn't know it would be golf. I just always thought it would be in the fitness area, female focused, and then started asking more questions. And I actually went for a club fitting. This was the triggering event, actually. I went for a club fitting, trying to figure out what's the best equipment for me, because I thought, yes, I want to get more into golf. And I walked into the storefront, and it was dark and cluttered and just had a ton of paraphernalia. And there were 5 simulators, and they were filled with men. And some were practicing, some were playing, and the owner was very knowledgeable and thoughtful. And after about an hour of trying different clubs and collecting the data, he had this apparatus on different drivers. I should have felt great. I had the money to buy, but there was this locker room banner going on behind me, and I left there feeling like a piece of meat. And I went back to my apartment, and I Googled women plus golf, like where could I have had a better experience? And the first link that came up was 20 hottest women in golf from Men's Health magazine. And all the other links were pictures of men in male-dominated language. And that's when I realized this needs to change.
That's a really, I don't want to say funny story, but interesting story,
Yes.
But so I'm curious, have you been finding support from men? Like, do men support this, or like, do you have any?
Definitely.
Okay.
If a couple walks in, the man is kind of in front because, hey, do you both play? He plays, she doesn't. And he'll talk for a little bit, and she doesn't feel that comfortable. And I turn to her and say, you're the reason I did this. And then she steps up and like, I matter.
Right.
And typically her partner is very supportive. Hon, I'd love for you to play. And she's like, okay, well, you know what? I would feel comfortable here.
Yeah. My friends that have girlfriends say all the time they would love, for them to go golfing with their girlfriend,
Yes.
And maybe you're right. Maybe it's the intimidation factor, but I also think it's the educational piece. I think that like, women are capable. They just don't know how,
How to break in.
Exactly. And it's like, this is a nice, safe place or safe space to do that.
So after this beginner's clinic, we take a little field trip and we play 9 holes, a little scramble. It's the first time they've ever been on a course. And they're emotional on at the last hole. They're like, I never would have had this opportunity if it hadn't have been for you. That's just wonderful to hear.
It is.
There's this genuineness in your spirit when you talk about people, and you want them to walk away with a great experience. There's one thing, Jan, that you've said a few times. This word, you said age. At this age. Now, here, listen.
I can give you that number.
No, I'm not asking for a number. I would never do that. Well, I might, but I'm just unpredictable. I think it's important to note that it's this thing that landed on your shoulders called experience. And I think that's one of the things that maybe gave you the confidence to jump into an area. It was a hobby that sounded like you became so passionate about that you wanted to almost like share that experience with other people. So it's not really an age thing. Those years of combined experience, I think, brought you here and enabled you to make good decisions. You're obviously making great decisions. You look around this place, it's gorgeous. And again, I can't wait to see how this expands now, because I want to follow you. I want to make sure that I just want to see how this all unfolds. This is really cool.
Thank you.
I'm really hadn't been here before. Antonino talked about this place like crazy, and I said, I can't wait to see it. You have these expectations when you go in, and I didn't know, only because I've been to a few different places that offer similar things, but nothing like this. I walk into this place, and I'm really like, wowed.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous. It really is gorgeous.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. But it's, again, back to the point, it's your experience, I think, that brought you along,
Too often it was, I would get invited occasionally to play. Hey, Jan, Antonino can't make it. Can you fill in? And the next time he could, and I was never considered. And there were just, one time I was invited to an outing at Diamond Run, beautiful course, and I had to get ready in the powder room, in the hallway, because men had both the men's and ladies' locker rooms. Women just aren't included, and often women don't even realize what they're missing out on. And really that was the driving force, was to give them, to your point, give them the space where they could practice, but also the opportunity to learn and just to embrace the sport and educate on how important it really is. And like I said, every right reason to play.
Wonder if the men don't even consider the fact that they were occupying all, what I mean? Maybe this is a reveal, this little podcast, the information you're sharing, maybe it'll cause people to look at things differently.
I have found that repeatedly. When we do these corporate events, many men are saying, I never realized, I'm taking my coworkers on Fridays and the women are left behind, and I thought that was just their choice, their preference. I have a different perspective now. So that's, I'm glad I'm starting to hear that.
That's incredible.
Definitely.
Antonino, what do you think? What else do we want to ask this fun?
Yeah, I do have one more question, but I have one other point to make, because
I love this.
one of the you have my Sean always chirps me, or doesn't chirp me, but always he says, like, you get me going, you get me thinking, and my mind goes in 30 different directions. And it does. I don't know how to turn it off. But I thinking about how you were saying how men don't realize that the women want to be included in golf. And I think that as a guy, I had this mentality too, that if I had a girlfriend or a wife, like, she wouldn't be interested. She wouldn't, she doesn't want to come play with me. She doesn't want to come do this. She views this as like a guy's thing, and it's like, that's not true. And so I do think it's really inspirational how you're kind of putting that message out there and giving women this, for lack of a better term, safe place to kind of do that, and hopefully kind of put the message out there to other people that like, hey, like women are interested in golf too. They could do it in the business setting, they can do it in the social setting. I also think, I live around here, but I mean, you were the first. I've been here for like a year and a half. I've lived in Pittsburgh my entire life, but I've been living in the Strip District for a little over a year. And you were the first golf place down here. Now I see there's all kind of putt places popping up,
Right.
this, and I think so you definitely have a movement or some sort of thing going on here where you're making golf more accessible to women, but just people from all aspects of life, whether that's they've never done it before or they don't know how and whatnot. So it's an inspiration. It's really cool, and that's why I'm always here supporting, because I just I do think that it's gonna I love the space and your message. I really buy into people's message. So I hope that people who listen to this episode, they kind of hear your message and kind of get inspired to, take that step and try golf, or, try something new at least.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah, these other places, putt golf, it just brings more attention to golf overall. So it's all good.
absolutely.
As we sort of wrap up this interview that I really loved, to these other people, our listeners here, what little inspirational message could you give somebody who is maybe they're in that same boat? They're in that corporate world and thinking, man, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? What would you say?
I don't want to get too deep, but I always thought things just happened to you and you had to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that we manifest our own reality. I had a friend who kind of got me on that path a few years ago, and if you're positive and you're grateful, like every morning I wake up and literally state what I'm grateful for, and I just have such a firm belief that we cause a lot. Like if you put positive out to the universe,
Mm-hmm.
you get that back. If you have a victim mentality or you're negative, you get that back.
Absolutely.
And I would just recommend, even reading about that and believing and just going for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just believe in yourself, yeah, we are all, women especially, have this thing I've read about, this imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And we always think, maybe men do the same thing, everyone else is smarter than them, everyone else. I learned so much through this process. I'd be in meetings, didn't matter if it was an attorney, a builder, whoever, and I felt good. Typically after the meeting, I thought, okay, I held my own.
Mm-hmm.
And just believe in yourself and, surround yourself. People come into your life who should be there at the right time. Believe in that and just keep going.
Yeah.
Well, Antonina spoke so highly of you that I couldn't wait to get down here. We had been planning this out for a month.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we were able to do this.
Yeah.
What do you think, Antonina?
Well, Jan, I appreciate you coming on. And there's always one question that I always ask all our guests before we wrap up. It's the last question. And it's, I've kind of got this question because I'm always interested in meeting other business owners, entrepreneurs, and learning from their experiences. So I always ask if you could give one word of advice to a young entrepreneur, or, not even young, just an entrepreneur that's leaping into entrepreneurship or starting a business, what would it be?
Be resilient. Yeah, don't give up. Have a lot of stamina, but yeah, the core of that, I think, is resiliency. Things will happen. COVID, financial struggles, day to day, but just be resilient. Believe in yourself. Yes.
Awesome. That's great advice. And Jan, thanks again for coming on. It
Thank
was a
you
pleasure
so much
having
for
you.
having me.
This was great.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you making time for us.
Yes. Best of luck.
You as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Jan.